What if I told you that one voice, just one performance, was enough to make a global superstar stop, stare, and whisper something no one expected? What if that voice belonged to Jungkook? And what if the song he sang wasn't even his own? Yet somehow, he made it sound like it was born from his soul. And what if the reaction from Halsey? Yes, the same Halsey who has worked with some of the biggest names in the world, was so raw, so honest, that fans are now calling it one of the most shocking vocal moments in recent memory. Because something happened, something quiet, almost hidden at first, but powerful enough to shake the internet. A moment where Jungkook's voice didn't just sing, it told a story. A story so intense, so haunting, that when he performed Swim, people didn't just listen. They felt it deeply. And Halsey? She didn't just react. She was stunned. Stay with me, because in this video, we're going to uncover what really happened behind this viral moment. Why Jungkook's version of Swim is being called insane by fans, and what it reveals about his evolution not just as a singer, but as an artist who may have just crossed into a completely different league. There are performances that entertain, and then there are performances that change the way you see an artist forever. And what Jungkook did with Swim might just be the latter. The story doesn't begin on stage. It begins in silence. In the quiet, unseen hours where perfection is not a goal, but an obsession. Jungkook has always been known as the golden magne of BTS, a title that sounds almost playful, almost light, but behind it lies years of relentless discipline. A young boy who entered the industry with raw potential, but who refused to stay ordinary. Over the years, fans have watched him grow. From a shy teenager with a bright smile, to a global icon whose voice carries across continents. But what many don't see is the pressure, the invisible weight of expectations, the constant need to prove again and again that he deserves his place not just in BTS, but in the global music scene. And this is where Swim enters the picture. Swim is not just a song. It's a mood, a feeling, a fragile emotional landscape that demands vulnerability from the artist who dares to touch it. It's the kind of song that exposes you, that strips away perfection and replaces it with honesty. And when Jungkook chose to sing it, he wasn't just covering a track. He was stepping into a space where every note could either elevate him or break the illusion. But something unexpected happened. Instead of simply delivering the song, Jungkook transformed it. His voice didn't chase the melody, it became the melody. Each note carried a weight that felt personal, almost intimate. There was a softness, but beneath it, a quiet intensity. Like someone holding back tears, yet letting them slip through the cracks of every lyric. Fans began to notice it immediately. Comments flooded in. Words like unreal, haunting, different started appearing again and again. But one phrase stood out among the rest. This is not the same Jungkook. And maybe they were right, because what people were hearing wasn't just technical skill. It was evolution. Jungkook has always had a powerful voice. Stable, clean, impressive. But in Swim, there was something more. Something raw. Something that felt almost dangerous. Like he was no longer trying to impress anyone. Like he had nothing left to prove and everything to express. And then came the reaction that changed everything. When Halsey, an artist known for her emotional depth and unique vocal identity, heard Jungkook's rendition, her response wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was instinctive, real, the kind of reaction that can't be faked. This is crazy, a simple phrase. But coming from someone like Halsey, it carried weight, because Halsey has heard it all. She has stood in studios with world-class producers. She has performed on stages where only the best survive. For her to describe a vocal performance as crazy isn't just a compliment. It's recognition. And suddenly, the conversation shifted. This wasn't just about a cover anymore. It wasn't just about fans praising their idol. It became something bigger. A moment where an international artist acknowledged, openly, that Jungkook's voice had reached a level that demands attention. But here's the part no one talks about. Moments like this don't happen by accident. They are built, piece by piece, through years of unseen effort, through vocal training sessions that stretch into exhaustion, through recordings that are scrapped, redone, perfected over and over again. Jungkook didn't just wake up one day and sing like this. He earned it. And yet, even with all that preparation, there was still a risk. Because Swim is not a safe choice. It's not a song you perform if you want to play it easy. It requires control, but also surrender. Technique, but also emotion. And Jungkook did something that many artists struggle to do, that he let go, that he allowed his voice to break slightly, to breathe, to feel imperfect in the most beautiful way possible. And in that imperfection, he found something real. Something that connected not just with fans, but with artists like Halsey. Because at the end of the day, music isn't about perfection, it's about truth. And in that moment, Jungkook told the truth. But as the video spread, as more people watched, a question began to form. Quiet at first, but growing louder with every replay, that if Jungkook can do this with a song like Swim, what else is he capable of? Is this just a glimpse? Or is this the beginning of something much bigger? Because there are whispers, conversations happening behind the scenes about Jungkook stepping into a new era. An era where he is no longer just the main vocalist of BTS, but a standalone artist with a voice that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the biggest names in the world. And if that's true, then what we witnessed in Swim might not just be a moment, that it might be a warning, a signal that Jungkook is evolving faster, deeper, and more powerfully than anyone expected. And Halsey's reaction, it might just be the first of many, because when an artist reaches this level, the world doesn't stay quiet for long. But the story doesn't end here, because what happened after this performance, what fans started to notice, and the emotional reactions that followed, reveals something even more shocking about Jungkook's journey. Something that goes beyond talent, beyond technique, and straight into the heart of what makes him who he is. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But what happened after that moment was something no one expected, because the silence didn't last forever. And when it broke, everything changed. Jimin didn't immediately laugh. He didn't clap or turn it into a joke like many would expect in a variety show setting. Instead, there was a brief pause, a moment where he simply watched Jungkook carefully, almost as if he was reading him, trying to understand something deeper than what was happening on the surface. And then, slowly, his expression softened, not into laughter, but into something else, something warmer, something that felt protective. Because if you look closely at that moment, really closely, you begin to notice something that many people missed at first. Jimin wasn't just shocked, he was concerned. Not in a dramatic, panicked way, but in that quiet, subtle way that only someone who truly cares would show. And that's when fans started to connect the dots. Because this wasn't just about what was happening physically, it was about what it represented emotionally. Jungkook, the youngest, the golden magne, the one who has carried expectations since such a young age, sitting there, allowing himself to be still, to be vulnerable, to not react, and Jimin, watching him, processing it, feeling it in a way that only someone close could understand. It created a moment that felt almost intimate. Not in the way people often exaggerate or misunderstand, but in a deeply human way. A moment of quiet trust, a moment of unspoken connection. And suddenly, the internet wasn't just laughing anymore. They were feeling something unexpected. As the clip continued to spread, reactions began to evolve. At first, it was all about the humor. Memes flooded social media, edits exaggerated the expressions, captions turned the moment into comedy gold. But then, something shifted. Fans began slowing the video down, rewatching it, analyzing every second. And that's when the tone changed. Comments started appearing that sounded different, more emotional, more reflective. People began saying things like, "I don't know why, but this feels deeper than just a joke." There's something about the way Jimin looks at Jungkook here. Why does this moment feel so soft? And that's when the real conversation began. Because in a world where everything is fast, loud, and constantly moving, moments like this force people to slow down. To observe, to feel, to think. And what they saw was something rare. Jungkook didn't perform in that moment, he didn't act. He didn't try to entertain, he simply existed, quietly, honestly. And that is something fans don't get to see very often. Because behind the performances, behind the perfection, behind the endless expectations, there is always a person. A real person. And sometimes, it takes the strangest, most unexpected situations to reveal that truth. Meanwhile, Chu Sung-hoon, who many initially saw as just part of the humor, also became part of the deeper discussion. Because his role in that moment wasn't aggressive, wasn't overwhelming. It was controlled, careful, almost respectful, and that added another layer to the story. Because now, it wasn't just about Jungkook and Jimin. It was about trust between all three of them. An unspoken agreement in that moment that everything was okay, that everything was safe. And perhaps that's why Jungkook didn't react. Because he didn't feel the need to. Because he trusted the situation. Because he felt comfortable enough to simply let it happen. And that realization changed everything. Suddenly, what seemed strange began to make sense. What seemed awkward began to feel meaningful. And what seemed random began to feel intentional in the most natural way possible. But then came the most unexpected part of all, the reaction of older fans. Not the ones who immediately jump into trends, not the ones who focus only on viral moments, but those who have followed Jungkook's journey for years, those who have seen him grow, those who remember the younger version of him, still learning, still adapting, still trying to find his place in a world that demanded so much from him. And their reaction was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't exaggerated. It was quiet, emotional, some even described feeling a sudden wave of nostalgia, as if this moment reminded them of something they couldn't quite put into words. Because in that stillness, they saw a glimpse of the past, a glimpse of the younger Jungkook, the one who trusted easily, the one who followed the lead of others, the one who didn't always have to be strong. And for a brief moment, that version of him seemed to return, not fully, not completely, but just enough to be felt. And that's what made this moment unforgettable, not the action itself, not the humor, not even the shock, but the feeling, the quiet, unexpected, deeply human feeling that stayed with people long after the clip ended. And as Jimin finally reacted, whether through a small laugh, a comment, or simply a change in expression, it felt like the moment had come full circle, because in the end, nothing dramatic happened. No big reveal. No shocking twist. Just a simple, strange, beautiful moment shared between people who trust each other. And maybe that's exactly why it mattered so much. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes it's the quietest moments that speak the loudest. So now, I want to ask you something. When you watched that moment, what did you feel? Did you laugh? Did you feel confused? Or did you notice something deeper, something emotional, something that stayed with you even after the video ended? Because everyone saw the same moment, but not everyone felt the same thing. And that is what makes this story so powerful. So tell me in the comments, what do you think this moment really meant? And if you felt something while watching it, don't ignore it. Because sometimes the smallest moments reveal the biggest truths.